On today's show, I have on the phone Sue Bowles. Sue's a speaker, writer, and has a blog on eating disorder, recovery, and other mental health issues. Being in recovery herself, she has a passion for educating and encouraging others. With a down-to-earth style, her desire is to help and support others, confronting and addressing their own struggles in their pursuit of healing. Sue says it's never too late to start. Her message is one of hope, perseverance, and encouragement despite the challenges. Sue is a certified professional life coach. We would love to hear from you what the Lord is doing in your life or have seen in others. Write us at stories@themillenniumbeat.com or call us and leave a voicemail at 407-624-9957. We at the Millennium Beat are looking forward to hearing what the Lord is doing in your life. Remember that the Millennium Beat is helping people share their stories. Welcome to the Millennium Beat Podcast, where we like to encourage the world one story at a time. Now get ready to hear stories from around the world that encourage and uplift you. Now to the show with your host, Kevin James. Hey everybody, this is the Millennium Beat. My name is Kevin James, I'm the host. Today I have a phone interview with Sue Bowles. Sue, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. I'm excited.
I am excited too. This is going to be great. We met through the internet and through the Facebook pages. It was great. It kind of works. It's really good. So, Sue, let's go back to the beginning of your life. That's how I always like to start my interviews, where you were born and stuff like that, and how you grew up a little bit. So let's start off from the early days of Sue's life.
From the early days. Well, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and I am Dayton. I am the middle of 5 kids, youngest girl, and the story kind of starts almost at the beginning.
Okay.
So let me just jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just jump right in. We're just going to cut right to the chase.
Right.
The story really starts in first grade, and let me say this a little caveat out there to your listeners before. Some of the things I'm about ready to share are pretty heavy. So if you find yourself being triggered or not sure, maybe there's little small ears in the room or something, feel free to hit pause, kind of engage in some self-care, maybe help, send somebody out of the room, give them something else to do or something. Because some of these topics are kind of heavy and may not be appropriate for younger ears.
Oh,
so,
that's good to say that. Thank
having
you.
said that, yeah, no problem. Having said that, when I was 7 years old in first grade, after school one day, a classmate, for a lack of a better word, enticed me into the woods on the school property. And that classmate's name was Bobby. And there's no other way to say it other than to say that Bobby raped me, and not just once.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a childhood rape survivor. And the kicker to it, though, is that wasn't bad enough. So my mom came looking for me, and I left out of one end of the woods, and Bobby left out of the other. His last words to me were, "Don't tell anybody." And I didn't realize the power those words were going to have over my life.
Right.
It became my 15-year secret. I didn't tell anyone until my senior year of college.
Wow.
So that's kind of where it started. And the way I have a couple of ways I try to describe it. And one is that my emotions became frozen in time that day. Because when you're back in the early 70s, this is not a topic that was being discussed.
Mm-hmm.
It was not on the radar. So no one knew to ask any questions. I sure as heck didn't know to say anything. And it was nobody's fault, but the story wasn't told. The only person that did something wrong that day was Bobby.
Right.
And it took me a long time to get there, and I'll get to that part later. But so to give a thumbnail sketch of the early years, we had that. Frozen in time. And after that, when you start off, of course, the longer you go, the further off, of course, you get. My family, my dad was an alcoholic. Now, thank God that he is 29 years sober, and I'm so contented and proud of him. Relationships have been restored and are probably stronger than they've ever been. But when I was growing up, there was some emotional abuse. There was some mental abuse. Never physical, but there were things that made you doubt your abilities.
Right.
Or I'm a screw up. those kind of things. What were the things I was interpreting? I can't say those things were ever said to me. It's how my mind, which was already scarred from me, that the body was taking it.
Right.
So I had that going on. As I kind of got through high school, I dealt with anxiety. I dealt with depression. Um, I was suicidal twice. One of the times was my junior year of high school. Um, during that time, during high school and everything, there was some other sexual abuse from a neighborhood boy. Things happened when I was dating different guys that didn't need to happen. So there was just a lot of um, feeling discarded, feeling of very little value. So had all that going on. You got the depression, you got the anxiety, you got the suicidal thoughts as well. By the time I get to college, um, remember what I said earlier, when you start off base, the longer you go, the further off you are. By the time I get to be 18, 19, 20, I'm like as far, I'm more than a 45-degree angle from the center. Um, and my brain was not processing things clearly. And over time, I developed an eating disorder. So, and for me, how it kind of came out was in the dining hall at college. At that time, there was certain meal times, and if you missed the window, you missed the meal. And again, because of the things going on in my mind over the years, my brain didn't process things correctly. So what it ended up being was I was hungry. I wanted to get into serving food. But because by this point in time I was so hurting and so messed up emotionally, I had become a master of wearing masks.
Mm.
And I had become a master of fake it till you make it.
Right.
And where it went was that Sue didn't have a need. Sue always had it together. Sue was the solid one. So how my mind interpreted it was that if I was hungry, my mind was telling me everybody was looking at me. And I started getting paranoid about it. And the problem with everybody looking at me to go get some more food was that they would know that Sue had a need. And by golly, we can't let anybody know that Sue's weak and that Sue has a need. So instead of going up and getting more food, I dumped my tray and I got out of Dodge. And what I learned to do was curb my hunger by snacking. And I might have a bag of chips. I might have a bag of chips and someone say, "Well, did you eat?" Yeah, I ate. I didn't lie because I had a bag of chips. Where the lie came in was when they said, "Well, what'd you have?" "Oh, I had a sandwich and a bag of chips." And that's because eating disorders are shrouded in secrecy. You don't want to be found out. So I had all that going on. So by the time my senior year of college hit, my mind was not a healthy place to be in any way, shape, or form. I was not processing things clearly. My emotions were off the charts. I was an angry girl in grade school, and I didn't realize it. I realize now where it came from. But there was somebody that signed my eighth grade picture book. You have your class book and everything. She signed it to the girl who's always mad. And I didn't realize for a long time how dead on Monica was. And I look at it now, it's like, I was. I was very angry. And it was all coming out against myself. Yeah, I was imploding. So that's kind of the thumbnail sketch of Sue's life for the first half of my life. And as you know already, and I hope listeners can already sense that it got a lot better. But really need them to understand a little bit of the foundation so that as they hear the rest of the story, they can understand just what God has done.
Let me ask you a question about the early years. From your 7 years old and stuff like that. What was your
Mm-hmm.
household like? Was it a non-Christian, Christian, no religion? What was it? What was the atmosphere of God in the household?
We were raised Catholic. So we went to, except for kindergarten and first grade and sixth grade, I was in Catholic school all the way up to through high school.
Okay.
So we were Catholic. As I got older in high school, I was singing in the guitar group. You know, my mom and dad, when we had the church parish, annual summer festival, mom and dad would coordinate a game section, young adult game area. So we were running booths and helping with that. So we were very involved in youth group. There was a Catholic retreat program called Search in high school that we were involved with. Mom and dad, what they call follow up parents, where we have follow up meetings. We have them at our house. So that we were very, very involved in our churches, very involved.
Now, on the early years when you were talking about the thing that happened to you and stuff like that, and obviously the typical thing of somebody that is a predator or somebody's, don't do this, I'll kill you, or I'll harm you. They
Hmm.
put fear in you so that they don't get in trouble or get caught for what they did.
Right, right.
So there's a spirit there too. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
not just from the act. They're also of fear. And then because you said it was many years before you could actually handle and deal with the situation that happened to you at a young age,
Hmm.
which should never have happened,
Yeah,
but
right.
it did. Were you on your siblings and stuff like that? I mean, was there any type of withdrawal from you? Because this is a traumatic situation first grade being raped from a boy. Was this boy a bigger boy? I mean, was he a different grade, or was it in the same grade as you?
He was even my grade. I think he was my grade, maybe one grade higher. Maybe. I mean, he was a classmate.
Right,
He
right.
was a classmate, and for the longest time, there's been a gap in my life that I really don't remember. And as I look back at it now, yeah, I remember more things as little by little. Um, but for the longest time, like I said, things were frozen in time, and I was in the deep freeze. I was really in the deep freeze. Um, you know, the what I do, the only thing I can say is that because that just wasn't on the radar.
Right.
I didn't know what happened. I knew something wrong had happened,
Right.
but I was scared because even when when things were happening, okay,
Hmm.
and there were kids walking by on the path, Bob would say, "Be quiet," because he didn't want to get caught. And I remember um, I remember later, again the power of that. Obviously, he knew something. He was doing something wrong because he was afraid of getting caught. But where I've gone now, though, as I've worked through everything, and as we talk, I hope listeners understand that it's been a lot of work and literally over a decade with the same counselor to be able to get to the point where I can share my story. And it doesn't even, and we'll get through all that. Um, but I know now after I've been able to forgive Bobby, and I look at it that it wasn't on the radar. So what was happening in Bobby's life that A, he would even have any of that kind of knowledge, and B, act on it. And so my heart breaks for him now. Longest time I was mad at him, but when I think about it now, that somewhere along here, they say the abused becomes the abuser, and I can't help but think that's what happened with Bobby as well. Unfortunately, at a very young age for him as well. So, so that lesson is, to say it left an indelible mark in my life is an understatement. It set me on a trajectory that nobody expected. But by the time we get to the end, I hope the listeners hear that um, God can even redeem that kind of stuff. So it is, things started taking off. When I was in high school, like I said, I was depressed and everything. I was involved in that retreat program. I went to college. When I went to college, I was the first person in my family to. Well, my brother went away to college for 2 years, and then he left and went into the Air Force. So by the time I get to college and I'm actually graduating, I'm the first college graduate in my family. So I was a trailblazer. Um, but because of that, again, there was the whole Sue's to have it together, Sue's strong. I had all those games going on. And I became a Christian when I was in college. I discovered that difference between religion and relationship. And it
Right.
was the summer between my it was the summer between my junior and senior years of college. And for me, Christian music was really starting to come out at that point in time. I came to Christ May 31st, 1985, at a Petra concert, Beat the System tour, Terra Arena, Dayton, Ohio. It's marked in time.
That's
um,
good.
and yeah, and I didn't know what was happening. I worked in a fast food restaurant. My first job, a coworker invited me to the concert. I was like, sure. And I'd never heard of the band. I didn't know anything about Christian music. I thought I was Christian if I was Catholic. It's kind of how the mindset was. And so we went, and at first I'm kind of reserved. And then as the show goes on, I'm kind of like, these people have something that I don't have, and I think I want it. And I just kind of started getting this. They had a real joy to them. And by the time we get to the end, and the band gives the invitation and leaves and prayer to receive Christ, and then invited people who prayed it for the first time to go backstage and have some material for them. I looked at Buddy, the guy that invited me, and said, let's go. And I didn't know what was going on. Let's go. So, and bless his heart, what was great is that after the show, we went back to the restaurant where we both worked. And he said, why don't you tell somebody what happened? And I so appreciate that because that helped me feel good. First, I'm like, I don't know, you kind of embarrassed about it and everything. And just Buddy encouraging me to verbalize it really helped feel it in my mind. But the thing is, I went back to college, and it took a year for me to realize my lifestyle was supposed to change. And my junior year was really stressful. I lived with someone who was an alcoholic. My roommate. She left at Christmas break to go into treatment. Um, and I was over involved in college. Um, when you don't know what's going on emotionally and you don't want to deal with your stuff, you find ways to numb. And for me, activity became my number. So I was over involved. I mean, my junior year of college, I coordinated homecoming, the winter formal, and an 18-hour dance-a-thon, all in one school year. On top of taking an overload of classes, on top of plugging the sorority spring semester, being a college radio DJ, section editor of the school paper, and working 20 hours a week. I mean, just on and on and on. So I was in theater. I was way over involved because that's where I got my value. Because up to this point in time, I had been devalued my entire life in my eyes. So so if I was seen, I had value, and if I had value, then I had worth. And that's kind of so activity became my number because of that. And the way I describe it is that if I kept busy, I didn't have to feel. If I didn't have to feel, I didn't have to deal with my stuff. And so that's where it all came in, and then the eating disorder kicked in. So college was a very tumultuous time. My dean of students at Highland, my freshman year, ended up kind of being my confidant pretty early in the school semester. Um, I was already over involved in not attending a class, which was supposed to be my major that my advisor was teaching. It helps to attend class. May I give that little, success hint? So I got called in the dean's office, and he kind of started asking some questions, and then I kind of started going to him. So by the time senior year rolls around, Ed and I have a great conversation, great relationship. He's become my confidant. And it was spring semester, senior year, and he could tell that I was not ready to go into the workforce. So he was giving me, as we would talk, he would give me different homework exercises about my goals and my dreams and, what I want to do and how I see myself versus how I think others see me. So all these different things, trying to help me be prepared to be a professional. And we were going over our homework one day. And I can't tell you what the homework was about. And I can't tell you what his question of me was. But I went off on some random answer. And in my book, I talk about it. I was inspecting the leaf pattern of his carpet. And my comment to him was, well, yeah, when society tells you not to say anything, and I kind of let my voice trail off. I did not know that my secret was wanting to come out because I hadn't really even thought about it. But when you have something like that, it's going to fester, it's going to leak, and it's going to come out. And Ed, very compassionately, he said, did your parents hurt you? And I said, no, not them. Did somebody else? I said, yeah. And what happened? That was the first time I told somebody. And I didn't realize how liberating that moment would be for me. Um, at that point in time, the game started to change, even though I didn't know it. I went off to grad school that fall, and I was not only did I graduate college, but then I was the first person in our family to go to graduate school. I had I had applied to one school at that time, Mankato State University, Minnesota State University in Mankato. So I applied at Mankato. I got accepted, and they asked to interview me for two different graduate assistantships in student affairs, one in residence life, one in student activities. So day after I graduated on Sunday, went home my Monday afternoon, I guess. We're on the road from Minnesota. We're driving up to Minnesota. And I had one interview Tuesday night, the next one on Wednesday. And then we turn around and go right back home to Ohio. And they offered both assistantships to me. So here I am, not even a week out of college, applying to interviewing in a grad school for two different assistantships, getting both of them offered to me. And the first real moment where I heard from God came while I was at that university in my interview. And it wasn't audible, but it was three sentences, very clear. I was coming back Tuesday night from my student activities interview, walking across campus, and just three sentences. Plain as day. I want you here for a reason. Don't ask why. Just trust me. And at that moment in time, I was like, okay, this is just a formality. This is where I'm going to be. And, sure enough, and lo and behold, yeah, I ended up going to graduate school. I graduated there. During that time, it was probably, I don't know, maybe a month or so into school, my supervisor I was the residence hall director. My supervisor would be in her office at night a couple times a week. And I went down there, I was struggling with some stuff. And Amy Winter was just fantastic. And we started talking. And she could tell something was going on, and my secret came out again. And she helped connect me with the counseling center the next day. So while I was in grad school, I was kind of starting to work on it, but that got me through grad school. Went through a whole time period where I wasn't seeing anybody. Never really dealt with it until really 6 years ago, and I'll circle back to that. But I had all this stuff going on, and as I look back now, I see the hand of God. I think back to those three sentences frequently, and I like to then look back and kind of put a landscape to it. Say, okay, this is one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons. I want you here for a reason. Don't ask why. Just trust me. And how many times, like, God, why do you want me here? What is it about? I think when we go through that and we want the answer. We want to know. You tell me now, God. You said you had a reason. I know you said don't ask why, and that's fine. But would you tell me anyway? And I think it's okay to have those real conversations with God. He's big enough he can handle it. But as I've looked back, I graduated grad school in '88. And as I look back now, and I go back to that, and I can see so many different reasons. It's been so cool just to watch how God works. The rearview mirror is it's an exciting journey when you start looking back. It's really crazy, and some of the things that happen there are things that have continued on, up to this point in time, and they're going to continue on. So I started my career in student services, and I worked on college campuses up until 1994. One of the cool things is that when you're working on college campuses, you know, if you're not working like the summer conferences on your campus, you have the summer off. So I got involved in a sports camp out in Missouri called Kanakuk Christian Sports Camp. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
No, no, I haven't.
Okay. A guy named Joe White runs it. And this is one of the reasons that, one of the fruit of being in Minnesota. While I was in Minnesota, I got a magazine that I had not subscribed to. It was called Today's Prime Time. And Joe put it out at that point in time. And Joe's an author, did Promise Keeper stuff and all this other stuff, from his family and everything. And long story short was that I ended up buying some of the books. And then after my first year post-grad, I was reading the book. It's like, this kind of sounds like a cool place to work. So I ended up filling an application and ended up being on staff out there for 5 summers. Worked in the kitchen, never stopped working in a hot kitchen, 14 hours a day with no air conditioning, serving, 400 people 3 times a day would be the best time of my life. It was fantastic. Excuse me. But with that, I started to grow. I started to grow my Christianity. And I left the first college I was at, and while I was working at the camp in the summers, I started working at a university here in Columbus, Ohio, in the Columbus, Ohio area in Delaware. And from there, worked there for about 5 years. Left that, went into youth ministry, and so I left that youth ministry, and unfortunately had a nasty church split, so I went to the business world. I share all that to say that even through all that, God continued to weave things together and bring people in my life. And one of the things that happened was in 2005 and 2008. I'd gone through a time where, I was out of counseling. Seemed like everything was fine. My pastor's wife passed away from stage 4 cancer in 2005. And 3 years after it, I was still grieving her as if it was yesterday. And some of my red flags for my eating disorder started coming up. And just to share a little bit about the eating disorder real quick. There are a lot of different eating disorders out there. There's a lot of misinformation and myths out there about eating disorders. And the eating disorder I have is called OSFED. It's an acronym for Other Specified Feeding and Eating Disorder. And what that means is that I don't fit the criterion for anorexia, or bulimia, or any of the other eating disorders. And I don't fit all the diagnostic criteria. Eating disorders are not about vanity. They are not a diet gone wrong. They are not anything about any of that. They're not even really about body image. Eating disorders are a mental health, a biologically based mental health issue. They are also the most lethal of all mental health issues, not only because of the suicide that happens in the middle of an eating disorder when the mind just isn't processing things, but also because of the damage that is done to the body long after an eating disorder behavior might end. So I knew I had what I called odd eating behaviors. I would even say I had anorexic tendencies, but I never called it an eating disorder until when I met Amanda. And Amanda is my counselor. And I met Amanda after my friend died. My friend was my pastor's wife. 3 years after, her name is Mallory. 3 years after she died, I'm still grieving her like yesterday. So I called my pastor and then talked to him. And he connected me with Amanda. He knew Amanda because after his wife died, 2 of his girls developed severe eating disorders. So Amanda is an eating disorder specialist. So I connected with her. And I'm still with her now. It's been a little over 12 years now. And I have gone places with her that I didn't know I needed to go and that I never thought I would go. I think that in my back of my mind, I kind of hoped maybe someday, but then I kind of brushed it off. So with Amanda, There's so much to tell about her, but um, what I love most is that she's real. She's authentic. She gives me some tough love when I need it. She'll kick me in the backside when I need it, and she'll just sit with me. And Amanda is the first person that I really started dealing with the rape. All up to this point in time, I had told somebody senior year of college. 8, 9 years had transpired. Hadn't really dealt with it since. And now I'm already out of the field and doing something else. I'm out of the field for 10 years. More than that, 15 years or 20, actually. And then being twice out of the field for 20 years before I finally really started dealing with it. So I tell somebody when I'm in my 20s, I don't start dealing with it till I'm in my 40s. And um, Amanda told me, I looked at Amanda about 3 to 4 sessions in. I said, what do you think it is? Why is my eating disorder why is this eating pattern starting to come up again? And I was starting to have my red flags. And for me, one of the red flags is going to the refrigerator, opening it up, I'm hungry. And I can't decide what I want to eat. And my brain shuts down and it gets overwhelmed and it can't make a decision. So I go back to my old survival techniques. I shut off my hunger, I shut the door, and I move on with life. And I don't eat. That was starting to come up when I was raising Melanie. So I listened to Amanda a couple sessions in, and she said, I think it's just a bunch of unresolved issues. Mm-hmm. We got to work. That was 2008. Amanda's Christian, so I was a Christian counselor, and I wanted that. And she later told me we had to get me stronger in the present so we could deal with the past. Because even though she found out very quickly about us, I also wasn't prepared to deal with it.
Right.
Not yet. And even though you think I would be, because I told a couple people, just because you tell somebody the story doesn't mean you're ready to face the story. So it got to be 2014, and we were starting to deal with it for the first time. And that was the most gut-wrenching process I've ever been through. Even though it had been so very long since the event, everything that a survivor goes through immediately after an event like that and a trauma in their life, I was going through decades later. I went through the blaming myself. The woulda, shoulda, coulda. I shouldn't have done this. It's my fault. All those things. I was hacked off of God. I was hacked off of God like you would not believe. I was like, where was he? Why did he abandon me? Why did he let that happen? I had to deal with all that. If you're going to deal with what happened, you got to deal with every root of it. And it is not a process for the faint of heart.
Right.
At all. So we're starting to dig into it. And it's gut-wrenching is about one of the only words I can find. Because I was having to face my story for the first time. I know that sounds weird, but again, activity had been my number. And old habits die hard.
Right, they do.
Even though I didn't have college and that activity, I surrounded myself with everything else. I was a youth leader. I was in the worship band. I was on the sound team. I was in the drama ministry. So all the old patterns were still there, just with different frosting.
Right.
So yeah, I was still numbing myself because I hurt and because I didn't know how to deal with it. So again, the mask. She's a great Christian. She's involved in everything. Hey, she's a youth leader, all this stuff. I ended up being the office manager at the church. I was on staff with an organization doing national high school ministry, so everything looked great.
Right, on the outside, everything did look good, I'm sure. But the inside...
And it was a lie.
It was a lie.
It was a lie. It was a lie. Until Amanda came along. So, this is where the story really gets fun, though. These last 6 years, has been a ride like I would never believe. Um, are you familiar with a Christian musician named Rich Mullins?
Hmm. Yeah, Rich. I mean, I don't know a particular song, but I've heard the name.
Okay. Awesome God was his big song. Our God is an awesome God. Um, so, okay. Yeah, that's the song. That's the song.
Oh
I've always
yeah,
said it.
I know that one.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, there you go. That's not that guy, step by step, and singing praise to the Lord, the name of Grant recorded and everything. So, where the left turn came in all this, where the redemption starts coming in, is in 2014. Up to this point in time, I'm hurting, and I'm finding all kinds of ways to hide it, and the eating is up and down. I was not at a healthy weight. I'd go out to the camp and I'd be excited because I wanted to gain some. My goal when I went out there working in the kitchen, I wanted to gain some weight. I was excited if I gained a little weight. And just to say this, I don't talk numbers. I never want to trigger somebody if I talk in numbers.
Right.
And an eating disorder is not about numbers. An eating disorder like I say, it's an emotional thing, and it comes out in your relationship with food. Ultimately, an eating disorder is about emotions not dealt with.
Right.
Um, so, so having said all that, 2014, there's a movie done called Ragamuffin, and it's put out. The producer contacted the family and friends of Rich Mullins, and in conjunction they did this movie. I went to see it. Tough watch, especially the first 20 minutes. First time I'm doing a lot of silent wiping of my tears. I'm kind of turning my face so nobody can see me, because again, all patterns. Somebody sees me wiping a tear, something's wrong with Sue.
Right.
I thought Sue was fine. I thought Sue had it together. What's the emotion about,
Right.
So again, all these old patterns of hiding are coming out in so many different ways, because what was inside me was screaming to come out. And it was finding any way, and I was trying to lock and block it every chance I had. So this movie hit, and I ended up seeing it a number of times that spring. Later in probably late spring, early summer, the same group of family and friends and the movie producer talk about having a retreat to continue the conversations about the themes of the movie. Some of those themes of the movie are reckless faith, family relationships, relationships with parents, um, reckless abandon, math,
Mm.
those kind of things, and dealing with secrets, dealing with your stuff. I was scheduled to go on a vacation to see some friends in Nashville. I was drawn to this retreat, and I had an internal tug of war going on for about 2 weeks, and just different things. You know, songs on the radio, songs that had come out right about that time, just seeing about the retreat, different things. And I finally pulled the trigger and committed to going to the retreat.
Mm-hmm.
One of the coolest things about the retreat is that about 2 weeks beforehand, they open up a Facebook group for just the participants in that retreat. It's a chance for you to get to know each other, especially this first time we were sharing our stories. And for the first time in my life, I went public with this story. Up to this point in time, it had always been in a trusted situation with someone I knew.
Right.
It had been with a counselor or a confidant, never just putting it out there. And as it was, I Facebook stalked in the room for 2 days. I was reading everybody else's posts, responding to other people, again, making it look really good, making it look really good.
Mm-hmm.
The attention wasn't on me. But you know how God has a way? And when God's working on you, you can run, but you can't hide.
Right.
I finally realized I couldn't hide. And one morning, I just got the sense that it was just time. So put on a pot of coffee, sat out in the dining room, and for a half hour, I wrote out the story of Bobby. And I gulped when I hit send on that. And I was petrified. I'm not going to share the whole story because I talk about some in my book, but
Right.
um, I went to that first retreat, and I went in very broken, and I went in calling myself the holy exception. And let me explain that for the listeners. Um, because, again, my mind was very twisted and was not processing things correctly. Um, I had convinced myself, ultimately the enemy had convinced me,
Right.
that everything in the Bible was good enough for everybody else but me. Thus, I was the holy exception. See where I'm getting that from?
Yep.
So, um, I was the holy exception because, when God wrote the Bible, he obviously didn't have me in mind because I didn't matter. You can see how twisted this is.
Oh yeah.
But, but at this point in time, but when your brain is so warped out, when you're not feeding yourself correctly, because this is in the middle of my eating disorder throes again, um, and you're dealing with some very intense emotional stuff. If there's an end that the enemy has, maybe he can have some fun. And he was trying to take me on a ride. So I went into this retreat very broken. One of the staff members has since told me that he described it as a Hail Mary pass for me.
Hmm.
Of a Hail Mary pass. Could God really love me? And could his kids really love me? Do I really have worth? And I wish you could see the smile on my face right now because everything else that has happened the last 6 years started at that retreat. And yeah, and then before I get into that, I feel like I've been going off on so many things. Is there anything you had a question on you want to circle back on before I get to the rest of the good stuff?
Nope, you're good. Keep going. Yeah, everything's good so far. It's you could one of the things that was popping in my head earlier back on some of the things you're saying is what the picture I was seeing in my mind is when we have situations that have hurt us or have damaged us mentally. I saw a room that you kind of like put those things in a room and you lock the door, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then from that point you say okay, and you forget about it because it's behind the locked door. You don't see it. You're not thinking about it, but it's still there because you never dealt with it. And how
Right.
many years did you do that? You did that for a long time before you started to have
Decades.
many years, and now you have to start dealing with it. And then sometimes you might let it out, and you did a few times. You talked to somebody, and you told them the situation that happened to you at a very young age, and then okay, and then you put it back in the door. You put it back in the room again, lock the door,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
when situations happen to you, um, sometimes it gets out and it comes to the forefront of your mind and stuff like that. And it sounds like that was the trigger to a lot of your eating disorder was because of the trauma of the early days. Um, things went from there. It went downhill from there. You know.
It was, and I, yeah, and I didn't realize any of that. Yeah, sitting on the other side of it now, I can see it.
Right.
But in the middle of it, that's why I needed people around me to help me understand, because I needed that. I needed that protection. I, I, I I'll kind of get into this here in a minute. Um, but I dabbled with cutting at one point in time. In the middle of all this. So, um, it was screaming to come out, and I was fighting it, not knowing that freedom was not trying, is not and trying to break down the door. But it didn't appear as freedom to me. It appeared as shame and embarrassment and uh, fault and blame and guilt and all these things the enemy was throwing at me. And those were the signs that I saw. And trying to see through all of that fog to the light of Christ was I needed somebody else to be the eye, have holding binoculars for me because I couldn't see it. I could not see it at that time. It was too much. It was too much because there's been decades of stuff that I had shoved into this room. I mean, um, think of like if something gets lost in the back corner of your refrigerator, and then more stuff gets put on top of it. Then you clean up the refrigerator, but you miss that corner, and then more stuff gets put in front of it. By the time you finally find the original, container, there's a whole lot of science project going on in there, and that's where you're like, I'm not even going to save the container. I'm fixing the whole thing out. Um, so so that's what was happening to me emotionally was that all of this, everything from the day Bobby raped me up to 2014 when I started dealing with it. You're talking 35, 40 years. That's half a lifetime, literally, of not dealing with emotions and letting them fester. And then you get lost in, you get lost, you get caught up in the spider's web. And then you get lost in the story of what story you told somebody else. And then you end up chasing your own tail because you're like, what lie did I just tell? I got to make sure I tell another lie to cover up that lie. And who did I tell it to? And oh my gosh, what? And then your mind starts to like, okay, but if I just screwed up and just ended up outing myself, how am I going to cover that? What lie am I going to tell to cover that? And that's just, it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting trying to keep track of your own lies. And that's the point I got to. An eating disorder is an addiction. Just like alcohol or drugs or cigarettes or anything else, it's an addiction.
Right.
The difference, though, is that when you're dealing with an eating disorder, for recovery to happen, you have to engage in the behavior of the item you're avoiding. And that's what sets it apart from any other recovery. Alcohol, drugs, anything like that, recovery is it involves avoiding the object. There's a bar, I'm not going to go in there. Whereas when you're dealing with an eating disorder, there's a restaurant, and it's lunchtime, I need to eat. If you don't eat, and if you are trying to be in recovery for an eating disorder, if you don't eat, you're going to die over time in the most extreme setting. So that is what sets apart an eating disorder recovery challenge from anything else, is that you have to engage and make yourself engage with what you've been avoiding or what you have not been dealing with correctly. As compared to, okay, I need to distract myself. I'm going to go drink water instead of go drink a beer. If I say, okay, instead of having a good sandwich, I'm going to have a bag of candy, it doesn't quite match, I'm doing myself damage in a lot of different ways. So, when you have all this, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
I've always said, dealing with disorders of drinking, drugs, those you can say, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or even like simple thing like not drinking soda. You can say, okay, I'm not drinking soda anymore. I'm not doing drugs anymore. I'm not drinking alcohol. But when it comes to food, like you said a few seconds ago, you must eat. Because if you don't,
Yeah.
you won't be you won't be alive in 50 days from now if you're not eating.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the hardest part, is the fact that you still have to do something. Soda, you can stop. You can say, nope, I'm never going to have a soda again. Beer, I'm never going to have a beer again. But you can't say, I'm never going to eat again.
Exactly. And I think that's an aspect of recovery and eating disorders that people don't really realize or think about. In part because there's so much misinformation out there about it. In 2016 is where I really started dealing with the eating disorder. So I'm coming up on that. I can talk a little more about what recovery was like in terms of really going through some things. Because that also is not for the faint of heart. So 2014, we go on this retreat. And for your listeners, the retreat organization is called Walking Stick Retreats. And again, it's put on by the family and friends of Rich Mullins. And they do it every year. Actually, our next one is end of June in Indianapolis. And then I understand there's one in Pennsylvania in November. They're trying to do two a year. And these people have become my tribe. They're my people, my people, and they're my family. And we see each other 3 days a year, and we do life together in retreat rooms the rest of the time. And what happened is, especially that first year, we had a bunch of ragamuffins. None of us knew each other, so it became broken. A lot of people have been burned by the church. I had been burned by the church. There is stuff about that church book that I'm taking to my grave. But I was on staff when it happened. I saw it all go down. So with this retreat, these people have Jesus with skin on, and ultimately we all just want to be loved. We want to know that we are lovable, and that we have value, that we have worth, and that God loves. And it's one thing to hear it, but it's a whole other thing to be immersed in it.
Right.
With people that are just like you, that are hurt just like you, and are holding on by a thread just like you. That might be ready to let go of that thread, and are there on a last-ditch effort. It's a whole different ballgame. And we quickly discover that it's a safe place. It's a place to be real. It's a place we can take off our mask. And that first year was so instrumental to everything. I went in, as I said earlier, telling myself I was the holy exception. Everything in the Bible was good enough for everybody else but me. Because I had not felt love before. I had not felt lovable. And I didn't feel valued or that I had worth. And I was imploding. I was imploding. I was in a desperate point. And in 3 days' time, and it's not the retreat, and it's not the people, it's what God does at the retreat through the people. Because it is God doing all this. I went from I'm the holy exception to saying and actually starting to believe Jesus Christ is absolutely crazy about me. And he not only loves me, he likes me. And that was I hope I'm painting a good enough picture to understand the torment in my mind for 30 years or more. And then to in just a short period of time, have this paradigm shift. It was, I do not use the phrase life changing very often, but this moment in time was life changing for me. And what has happened the last 5 years is evidence of that. I had to own my story. We all have our stories. That's the one thing we all have that nobody can take from us. I had to own my story. My story has now become a book. I wrote my first book after I started going on these retreats. My book is actually called This Much I Know, The Space Between. And I said it earlier, it's a two-part book, and the title is referencing two things as well. This much I know is my story. It's the one thing nobody can take. So each of us, this is the one thing we know. And the space between talks about that healing journey. And one of the things that when I started writing the book after the first retreat. And it first was going to come out more of I think more of like a devotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like this much I know, and have little snippet summary at the end. And then as it kind of morphed, it kind of became, it was therapeutic for sure, but it became my story. And some of the concepts I had for the first book I kept. So at the first half of the book, at the end of each one, I share a little summary thought. This much I know. ... So for example, after that chapter talking about Bobby, I say this much I know. No matter what happens, God sees, God knows, And God is at work to make good come out of even unspeakable horrors. So the first half of the book ends with some kind of thought like that. The second half of the book talks about the healing journey that happened through the retreat. And I talk about that space between. Let me share this. It's a paragraph. This is a quick little paragraph. On the back of the book, it's also in the book. The quote from it is, when we're talking about our stories, the space between is that gap, that time of questioning, and anger, and confusion, and doubt, and whatever else you can think of. It's a great area of uncertainty, of wondering what the point is. So the second half of the book talks about that. So the very first retreat, I had to face my story. I was in denial about my story. I was not calling what happened to me grief. It was, I would say it, but there was no emotional attachment to it at all. It was just words. It was a four-letter word coming out of my mouth. I was ready, you know. But I was so detached from it because I had shut off my emotions. My emotions were frozen in time. The longer you're in the freezer, the thicker the ice gets. So, so after that first year, start writing a book, go back to retreat, and each year something more happens. And I went from, it's been a whole process. I went from having to own my story, having to grieve my story. And that sounds weird, but it's so healing. The second year of the retreat, I had a moment where I called it my sacred moment of release. I had one. I've had a few, but there were a couple different times where I just had to grieve my story. The first year it was owning it and just letting myself feel the sorrow over my story. And that was just the emotion part. But then the next year, and again, I'm talking with my counselor going into this retreat, and she's finally get to the point where we do this. And this is the year of 2014 where we're starting to dig into the rape. I looked here one year and said, I just want to be off on it. So get me ready. So we had 6 weeks of just dealing with my fears and concerns and apprehensions and desires for the retreat. By the time I got there in 2014, I was ready to do some work. And that's what God needed. 2015 is where I grieved my story. You got to own it first before you can really deal with it. And I've been dealing with the rape. So by the time I get to retreat fall 2015, it's finally starting to take root. And each year there was something different. It was, the following year, the theme of the retreat was the kingdom of God is. And we're talking about the different parables. And the one that really hit me was about the pearl of great price. And it hit me that I'm valuable to God. I am the pearl of great price. You, Kevin, are the pearl of great price. And we have value, that I am valuable to God. And I realize that I have a responsibility. And that now, because I have value, I have worth in His eyes, not because of anything I did. All those activities were trying to earn approval. That's all it was. It's the only way I knew to find worth. It's the only way I knew to know that somebody cared. Because if I was seen, that meant that someone cared. And I got some attention. Because I didn't know how to reach out. I didn't know how to say I'm hurting and I'm dying inside and I need help. So I go from owning my story and grieving my story to I'm valuable, to realizing that my story is worthy of being told, that I have worth, and I now have a responsibility. And if you had told me in 2012, 2013, that I would be on multiple podcasts, international podcasts, and speaking and having a book out, and I'm a life coach, if you had told me I was going to be doing these things, I would have laughed you off the face of the earth. Literally, I would have kept laughing until we found the edge of the earth. because up until then, I did not have worth. I didn't believe I was worth it. I didn't believe I had anything of worthwhile to offer the world. I was taking up space. And that's just how, I was too screwed up. I was too far gone. And I was too far gone for God. That's what I believed. Believed being the operative word because that's past tense. Because now I know that I'm valuable to God.
Right.
I have worth. He cares.
Yeah, definitely.
He was there in the woods when I was hacked off of him because I'm like, why'd you abandon me? He was there. He knew. Doesn't mean he made it happen. Bobby made that choice. Nobody else. Just because God is there and sees something doesn't mean that he is condoning it. Bobby made that choice. And because we live in a fallen world, there is sin. Bobby's choice was sin. And thank God that Jesus' sacrifice covers Bobby's sin too. And that might kind of grate at us a little bit, but it's true because God, if Jesus died for all, that includes my rapist.
That's true. That's true. What I see in my head is the fact that you traded the image that you had of yourself for the image that God had for you.
That's a good way to put it.
Yes, and
I don't have my head wrapped around that all the way.
no,
It's
it's
still
a process.
evolving.
It's a
But
walk.
it's a wild ride. It's fun.
It definitely is. And now the thing is, this ride could go on for a long time, in the sense of our conversation, not the fact of the negatives. But what I want to do is I want to land this plane a little bit. And what I want to do, I'm trying to remember what I wanted to do. I know what it was now. It was somebody's listening and they could go through some of these challenges that you had and then you've working through or you work through. How can people get a hold of you, your information, you personally, your books, your teachings, your podcasts, anything, websites, stuff like that? And I'll have it in the show notes. But tell some people listening that might be going through it, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Kevin. It would be my honor to walk from this journey with them. The same way somebody walked with me. The same way I have friends walking with me now. We cannot do this alone. So if someone would allow me the privilege of helping in one way or the other, it'd be a huge honor. I am on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Everything is under My Step Ahead. And there's a story behind that. We didn't get a chance to do it. Maybe next time I can get into that a little more. But it kind of comes out in the book too. But Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, My Step Ahead. My website is mystepahead.com. I'm all about the theme of the show of the website is you only have to be a step ahead to help the person behind you.
Okay.
So website is mystepahead.com. My Step Ahead on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I also have a page. I'm a life coach and I do speaking. So that's suebowles.com. People can contact me there. Email addresses are on both of those pages. I'm also I'm on LinkedIn, just with Sue Bowles. The book is available on Amazon and Kindle. It's called This Much I Know, The Space Between. If you want to pick up a copy, that'd be great. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay.
I have a weekly what I call Hump Day Help I send out. If people want to text next step to 31996, I'm just got a little text encouragement I send out each Wednesday. If they give me their email address, I'll send them for 2 free copies of the book, 2 free chapters of the book. Like I said, my website I've been on a lot of different podcasts. This show will air after the summit. I'm part of a mental health summit next week. It's May 5th through 7th online. There is an access pass people can purchase that would give them lifetime access to it. So if people want to go back and listen to it after it comes down off the internet, I'll have that link again on my website as well. They can purchase that. And then May 18th, I'm also going to be part of another global summit called Dare to Speak Up. And it's about breaking the shame around trauma and abuse, and about the courage to speak up and share your story. So as I get more information on that, I'll have that on my website as well.
Cool. Many ways to get a hold of you. That's great. I like that. And that's what we do. We're helping each other right now, sharing the information to change people's lives. So let's. I always like to end with a prayer. I put a nice little bow on this conversation, because somebody's listening, somebody's going through some of this stuff. Let's make a little short prayer. I mean, a minute or two or whatever. Let's pray for somebody to kind of guide them to make the decisions to start releasing some of the stuff. Actually, what I see in my mind is help them get the key to unlock that door that they've been pushing things in, so that they can get these situations resolved. And let's do that, and then we'll close from that point. So can you lead us in a prayer?
Oh, I love to.
Thank you.
Father God, thank you. Thank you for who you are, for your healing power, for the stories that you're writing, and that whatever the chapter is that someone's experiencing now is just that, only one chapter of a glorious story that you are writing. Father, I pray for that person right now, be it male or female, whatever they are going through, Lord, that they would feel your warmth, your power, your strength, your light, your love permeate the cracks of the mask. Lord, I love the Rich Mullins quote, it's not going to matter if you have a few scars, no matter if you didn't live. Father, I pray as the scars, as they develop, scars are signs of healing. I pray, Lord, as the scars develop, that you are the healing balm. Father, that as someone's locked in that room of shame and doubt and fear and embarrassment and guilt and everything else the enemy's trying to throw at them, Lord, I pray, Lord, to see you standing in the window with love in your eyes, smiling at them because of you love them so much. And Lord, that they would be thrown to the door or the window or wherever, and they would crack it open even more and let you in. Father, if there's some way that Kevin or I can be part of that journey, to give them the courage to reach out to us, and to give them that strength, that courage, that boldness, that trust, that risk, that willingness to take the risk, to love, and to dare to believe that they are worth it. And if you allow any of us to walk that path with them, even if it's just one step, we'd be honored to get the skin off to somebody. Father, continue to heal. Healing is a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. Father, continue to heal me, Kevin, and the listeners, Lord, that we may be your hands and feet, that we would be your lighthouse in a world that needs it desperately, Lord. And that as you continue to not only write the story now, but then, Lord, as you continue to write the next chapter and the next chapter and the one after that, that we would be beacons of hope. For all this in your name.
Thank you, Lord. Amen. Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Kevin James. I am the host of the Millennium Beat. I've been on the phone with Sue Bowles. I appreciate you very much, Sue, for taking time out of your schedule to join us tonight.
No, I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you so very much.
Everybody, again, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week at the same time on wherever you get your podcasts, but we do go on Apple Podcast, Podbean, and our website. Every Sunday night at 6 o'clock, we release a new podcast. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in today to the Millennium Beat podcast. I hope you heard something that was encouraging to you. We'd like to hear from you with your story, so write us at stories@themillenniumbeat.com or give us a call at 407-624-9957 and leave us a voicemail. You may also find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel. Please like us and share us with your friends. You may also go to our website at themillenniumbeat.com, and you'll find our podcast and our YouTube video. You also may find a calendar there with past and future guests and dates and times. Plus, another way for you to contact us with your stories or questions. This has been a Millennium Beat LLC production, copyright 2020. Views and opinions of the guest are not always the views and opinions of the Millennium Beat LLC. You've been listening to the Millennium Beat with your host, Kevin James. I'm going to give you a little snippet of a show called Family Matters with your host, Paul Kindle. If you want to hear more shows like that, go to KindleFamilyNetwork.com. Once again, I'd like to thank Paul Kindle for the use of his show.
Welcome to Family Matters, a daily look inside the real world of parents and their children. I'm your host, Paul Kindle. Monday through Friday is typically filled with hectic work schedules for adults and equally hectic school schedules for children. And Sunday can easily become a day just to do everything that you didn't get done on Saturday. We are the busiest generation in history, and if you're not careful, the week can pass you by without proper rest. Just like automobiles are designed to require proper maintenance, our manufacturer has designed us to require a day of rest. In Genesis 2:2 it says, God rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Many Christians get so busy with church work that they sabotage any hope for a true Sabbath. I remember years ago when I was minister of music at a church, Sunday mornings we would often oversleep because we'd been out late the night before. Then we'd get up and run around the house shouting things like, "Socks! Where are my socks?" Then we would speed to church, bickering all the way, and then I'd open the door to the platform, put on a big fake smile and say, "Isn't it good to be in the house of the Lord?" After service, I might say, "Oh, I've invited some people over for lunch." "What?" my wife would say. "We were going to go to McDonald's, and besides that, the house is a wreck." So I'd tell her, look, you go on, and I'll stall them for 10 or 15 minutes. And this would produce enough frustration to last the rest of the day. Week after week, year after year, we lost our Sabbaths. Eventually, we learned the importance of having a day of rest and worship. Mark 15:24 says, "Now when evening had come, because it was the day of preparation," that is, the day before the Sabbath. You see, it was a common practice, even in the time of Christ, to prepare for this important day. So we began to prepare. Saturday night, we laid our clothes out and made sure we knew where the socks were, and we discussed our lunch plans for the next day, and we got to bed at a decent time. What a difference that made. You see, everyone deserves a Sabbath, a day of rest and worship. This Saturday night, take a little time to prepare for your family's day of rest and worship. Then, get up Sunday, take the family to church, and enjoy the day. God says you need it. Guard your Sabbath and don't let anyone or anything steal it from you. And come Sunday, the smile on your face will be real. That's Family Matters. I'm Paul Kindle.
For more Family Matters and to learn how you can bring Family Matters to your church or special event, log on to thekindlefamilynetwork.com.